Good afternoon and welcome to News Blitz on ZTN. Let's take a look at our top stories. Zim procures 2.5 million COVID-19 vaccine doses. Man rapes 2 daughters, impregnates 1. Fresh attack by insurgents in Mozambique. And in sports, Chibuku Super Cup resumption set for next week. In our opening story, Zimbabwe has procured 2.5 million COVID-19 vaccine doses from China, which are expected to land in the country early July. This was revealed by the country's Vice President Constantino Chiwenga earlier today. The country has already received 1.7 million doses of vaccines from China, India and Russia, with the bulk of the vaccines coming from China. To date, a total of 715,056 people have been vaccinated against COVID-19. Vice President Chiwenga challenged Zimbabweans to embrace the vaccination program as the country battles to contain the pandemic.
We will be going on a full war to make sure that this invisible enemy is defeated. But we want cooperation from every one of you, from every Zimbabwean. Government has procured vaccines and will continue to procure vaccines. As I speak, by end of this month, and maybe into the latest into first week of July, we would have received into the country 2.5 million doses of the 2 vaccines which we are using, Sinopharm and Sinovac.
Meanwhile, government is considering compulsory vaccination for vendors who operate at popular marketplaces such as Mbare Musika in Harare and Renkini in Bulawayo. Vice President Chiwenga speaks.
All those areas like our Mbare Musika, the Renkini in Bulawayo, and all those marketplaces, those who want to trade, you must trade at those marketplaces but have a certificate of COVID-19. No vaccination. Why should you sell and become a super spreader? Let's all cooperate, is it? So if one wants to sell it at a marketplace, the individual must also get vaccinated. Is that not fair? That's fair, I suppose, to everyone who goes and buys, either a cabbage head, or rombambaira pamsika, but wotenga kune munhu anenge ari safe.
The Vice President was speaking during a donation of 57 PCR machines which test for COVID-19 at reduced turnaround times. The machines have a result turnaround time of 45 minutes compared to the conventional machines which take between 4 and 5 hours to produce results. The donated machines will be distributed to hotspot areas in order to scale up testing. Still with COVID-19, Zimbabwe recorded 766 new infections in the last 24 hours, the highest so far this month. Mashonaland West Province recorded 242 new infections, while Mashonaland Central recorded 96 in the same period. One COVID-19 related death was recorded in the period under review, with each of the country's 10 provinces having recorded double figures in terms of infections in the past 24 hours. Are we likely to see more areas being placed under lockdown? We spoke to the Chief Coordinator of the National Response of the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Agnes Mahomva.
We are guided by the data on the ground, and that data is issued every single day by Ministry of Health and Child Care. So there's no one who's going to predict what we're going to do in August today. We will tell you as we look at the data, as we analyze the data. This is specifically what has happened in the past few weeks, for example, where we had an outbreak in Kwekwe. If you remember, genomic sequencing demonstrated that this was an India variant. Immediately, lockdown was put in place to address that data point that told us a story. that we were now having a more transmissible variant. So as we look at our data on a daily basis, we then make decisions.
Now moving on to labour issues, government workers in Zimbabwe are unhappy with the manner in which government is handling salary negotiations. Talks between the parties, which were last held earlier in the year, ended in a stalemate. Government had offered its employees a staggered 75% increment. Confederation of Public Service Sector Trade Union Secretary General David Zatsunga speaks.
We are really taken aback by the fact that the employer has persisted in negotiating in bad faith. Just the fact that they decide to effect all these adjustments to people's salaries without any real dialogue. These are not agreed, or this is not coming out of a negotiated process. It's unilateral, and our position is that government or the employer should begin to look at our social dialogue framework as sacrosanct, that it should be guided by the law, and that they should not act in the manner they are doing going forward.
Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare Minister Professor Paul Mavima told ZTN that the government's technical team, which negotiates with workers in the National Joint Negotiating Council, is finalising research before tabling a new offer.
We are still waiting on the report of our technical people. In fact, the PSC, the Minister of Public Service and Labour and Social Welfare, the Minister of Finance, and also the Minister of Education were tasked with coming up with something that we can take back to the negotiating table. And we're still waiting for that report. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, George Guvamatanga, said the current salaries being paid to civil servants are not ideal, but competitive.
So we actually believe that we significantly improved from where we are. Is it ideal? No. But is it competitive? Yes, it is competitive. It is competitive. And at the moment, when you look at the projection and year on year, we still expect that salaries and wages will be 50% of revenues.
We move into the region where a 40-year-old Zimbabwean man has been arrested by South African police for repeatedly raping his two daughters, aged between 13 and 15 years, over a one-year period until the eldest fell pregnant. The man, who cannot be named to protect the victim's identity, was arrested in the Zidwe area of Port Elizabeth on Monday at the intervention of the Zimbabwe Migrant Support Network in the neighbouring country. The accused appeared at the New Brighton Magistrate Court in Port Elizabeth, facing charges of rape, and was remanded in custody to June 30 for a formal bail application. Zimbabwe Migrant Support Network Secretary General Shelton Chiyangwa said the two teenagers had been taken to a safe place for counselling and related support. Insurgents have been involved in a renewed clashes near Mozambique's northern town of Palma. It came as SADC approved the deployment of a standby force to help Mozambique fight the insurgents. The northern province of Cabo Delgado has long experienced instability, but the insurgency involving suspected Islamist militants began in 2017. The conflict attracted more international attention after the militants seized Palma in April, killing foreigners and bringing a $20 billion natural gas project to a halt. A claim that South African woman Gosimani Stole gave birth to 10 babies earlier this month is not true. This is according to an official inquiry by the country's health authorities. In a statement, the authorities said no hospital in Gauteng province have any records of decuplets being born. With medical tests showing that Sitole had not even been pregnant recently, the 37-year-old is now being held under the Mental Health Act for observation and will be provided with support. On to international news, and John McAfee, the antivirus software magnate who had multiple recent run-ins with the U.S. law, has died at 75. McAfee was awaiting extradition in a Spanish prison after being charged with tax evasion in the United States last year. He was found dead in his cell in a prison near Barcelona on Wednesday, and Superior Court of Catalonia said the cause of his death is still under investigation. McAfee was the founder of the hugely popular antivirus software named after him. Up next is sports news. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Good morning, Becky. What are you doing here? Don't you know that there is an easier way?
Sports news on a Thursday. We start with football. The Chibuku Super Cup is expected to resume next week. This is after most of the clubs conducted COVID-19 tests in compliance with the PSL regulations. The tournament was this week one of the sports events cleared by the Sports and Recreation Commission, the SRC, to resume activities. Zimbabwe pace bowler Blessing Muzarabani's Malton Sultans take on Peshawar Zalmi in the Pakistan Super League final today. The 20-year-old Chevron's bowler has enjoyed his stint in the PSL with some fine performances, and that has given his national team coach Lauchand Rajput the reason to believe he will start in today's final.
The way he's been bowling, I think he's one of our best bowlers as well, and he has proved there as well. And if you look at the last game, he got 3 wickets. The game before that, he got 2 wickets. So he is among wickets, and he's really helping that team to do well, because they were second last, but now they are in the final. So with his inclusion, I think the bowling department looks very well, and I'm sure they will win this game, and it will be a good thing for Blessing as well.
Still with cricket, newly crowned World Test champions New Zealand have been hailed for their top performance. New Zealand beat India yesterday to win the inaugural competition. Plaudits have come from many sectors, including New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, legends Brandon McCullum and Richard Hadley, who have called the team the greatest side. On to NBA action. Atlanta Hawks guard Trae Young's big game performances are not stopping. The 22-year-old scored 48 points and added 11 assists as Hawks upset Milwaukee Bucks 116-113 in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. A story on NBA does it for News Blitz this afternoon. Thank you so much for making us your choice. Do stay connected with us on Twitter at ZTN News, Instagram at ZTN, and do visit our website ztn.co.zw to get in touch with more of our programming. Good afternoon.